Well, party peoples of the interwebs, there really is no longer any question about it. The Conservative Party of Canada are WEF stooges. Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, in my home office, and there are some breaking updates coming out of Canada. The Conservative Party of Canada has finally taken an interest in the Ostrich story. Melissa Lantsman, the Conservative MP, came out on Twitter and said October is the month of the bird. Oh, wait a minute, she was talking about the Blue Jays, not the Ostriches. From Melissa Lantsman, at Melissa Lantsman, October belongs to the birds. Good luck, Blue Jays, you are Canada's team. Top of the East, hashtag want it all. Oh, want it all. Terrible hashtag. And she even put out a video talking about the importance of the birds. She's just not talking about the ostriches that are on the verge of being slaughtered in British Columbia. She's talking about the Blue Jays, sports, the ultimate distraction from the realities that actually matter.
In this place, we can all agree on something. Congratulations to the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays on clinching the division. They stand tall, champions of the American League. Clinching the division isn't just baseball, it's a public service. Now the rest of Canada can stop doing playoff math like deranged accountants in the most stressful reality show there is. To the Jays, you've rocked the dome, you've made this country proud, you've given us permission to believe that this is our year. On behalf of Canadians from coast to coast to coast, best of luck in the playoffs. May the bullpen stay steady and the bats stay hot, because this year we want it all. Fly all the way south to the World Series, boys. October is for the birds. Yeah.
I see this tweet and I read the first line and I'm actually elated with joy. I'm like, oh my goodness, the Conservative Party is finally talking about the birds. Then I read the body of the tweet and I watch the video and I'm just sick of the Conservative Party of Canada. Any goodwill that they had in my spirit is long gone. They are no longer part of any solution. They are part of the problem. They are all a bunch of WEF globalist whores. And I took to Twitter to respond at the Viva Fry, quote, October belongs to the birds, end quote. I read that first line and thought you had actually finally tweeted about the ostriches. You're actually just trolling at this point. You are brazenly rubbing in the faces of your constituents the fact that you are totally ignoring the ostrich crisis. The Conservative has lost any benefit of a doubt I was ever prepared to give it. You are not part of the solution in Canada. You are part of the problem, at Melissa Lantsman. It really is incredible. We are entering damn near 2 weeks of this ostrich crisis where the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, has descended on Edgewood, British Columbia, an idyllic little farm in the middle of beautiful British Columbia, with their Gestapo agents, the armed RCMP, who are just there following orders, setting up a kill den to slaughter the ostriches. This standoff has now been lasting about 2 weeks. It's garnered the attention of the international community. We were just in an article, I think it was called The Western Journal the other day. The Western Journal, equipping readers with the truth, lifestyle, and human interest. Canadian begs for lives of doomed ostriches, quote, please help us, President Trump. We need a miracle, end quote. By Lori Wickenhauser, September 30, 2025. A woman whose family's nearly 400 ostriches are marked for death by the Canadian government has appealed across the border for help from President Donald Trump. Quote, Mr. Trump, President Trump, this is a cry out, a plea from Canada. Please stop the slaughter of almost 400 healthy ostriches that are going to suffer today or tomorrow, end quote. A tearful Katie Pasigny of Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, British Columbia, pleaded, we need a miracle. I don't need to get into the substance of this. If you haven't heard about the story, you are new to the channel, but the bottom line, these are 400 healthy ostriches about a year ago, 10 months now, December 2024. The birds got sick, a bunch of them died, and the rest survived. The CFIA tested 2 corpses of the ostriches with a PCR anal swab test cycled to 40, so you can all determine the accuracy or false positivity of that, determined that the birds suffered from avian flu, the H5N1, and ordered the entire flock to be slaughtered. Universal Ostrich Farm contested the decision. They took it to the federal court. In May, they got a ruling saying, yeah, the December order was good, valid, kill the ostriches, even though they had all been healthy up until that time. They then appealed that to the Court of Appeal, and in August, nearly 10 months later, the birds are healthy now. They've been healthy for over 275 days. The Court of Appeal says, yeah, the CFIA's order was reasonable. Go ahead and kill the birds, because they've adopted a stamping out policy in virtue of the World Organization of Animal Health, WOA, a WOA agreement with an international globalist organization organization, so they got to stamp out even the healthy birds, the one that survived the flu. And now there's been a 2-week standoff in Edgewood, British Columbia. Armed Gestapo agents, RCMP, just there following orders, while the CFIA sets up a kill den to slaughter the 398 healthy ostriches. And then in the article, you can see a tweet from me, Viva Fry at the Viva Fry, a direct call to at Real Donald Trump from Katie at Universal Ostrich Farm, at Robert Kennedy Jr. offered twice to take these birds to study them. The Canadian government refused and instead seems intent on not only slaughtering the birds, but torturing them before they slaughter them. Please do or say something. This is not just an insult to the Trump administration. It is an act which puts everyone at risk to the extent at HHS.gov believes the birds hold scientific value and should be studied, not slaughtered and incinerated. Now, all of this has been going on for damn near weeks at the very least in terms of crisis level urgency. It's been going on for months, and the Conservative Party of Canada has said jack squat. It wasn't until only recently, last week or so, that Scott Anderson, an MP coming out of British Columbia, finally said something, but the Conservative Party, the so-called opposition to the Liberal tyranny, has said absolutely nothing about it, not only indicating that they don't care about it because they know about it, indicating that, for whatever the reason, they are on board with the slaughter of these animals. And if you had any lingering doubt, just yesterday at the time of shooting this vlog, Pierre Poilievre was finally asked a question by a journalist. Some journalist actually had the cojones to ask Pierre Poilievre a question that he quite clearly did not want to be asked and did not want to answer. Look at his face as he is being asked this question. He does not want to be asked this question, and he does not like the journalist for asking it. And then he goes on with an epic Justin Trudeau level pivot and deflect and not answer the question. He even goes so far as to actually sound like he's borderline getting mad at the journalist for insisting on a clear-cut answer as to how he feels about the slaughter. He seemingly gets irritated with the journalist, but don't trust my assessment of the video. Watch the video for yourself.
What is your official stance on the ostriches in British Columbia and the culling order that they are facing?
Really incredible that the Liberals have caused so much. Because of Liberal incompetence, we're in this mess. And when you have an incompetent government, you have messes like the inflation crisis, like the crime crisis, like the border crisis, like the investment crisis, like the fastest shrinking economy in the entire G7. When you have an incompetent government, you get lots of these messes.
Wait, on the ostriches, sir. Sir, you didn't say what your stance is on the ostriches.
This lady
Why won't you answer your stance on the ostriches?
I just did. I said the Liberals are incompetent. That's my stance.
Do you support the culling order?
Can I just...
Can we get your reaction to the new lumber tariffs?
The original tweet came from Mr. Sunshine Baby at Mr. Sunshine Baby. Watch, Pierre Poilievre is asked about the ostrich situation in BC and gives a Trudeau-style answer. He deflects and talks about inflation instead. Conservatives will never win an election with this level of weak leadership. To which I reply, I watched this video with the sound off first, just to get an impression of body language. Then I watched with sound on. At Pierre Poilievre is not, quote, controlled opposition, end quote. He is just controlled. It's obvious. He is bought, paid for and controlled by Big Pharma or globalists' interests. This is the only plausible explanation for this. Your political career is over, Pierre. Pack it up and step aside. And anyone in the CPC_HQ who has aspirations of becoming leader, now is your chance. Trigger a leadership race because the, quote, conservative, end quote, party is done for under this, quote, leader, end quote. Such a disgrace. And I watched it first with the sound off, not out of preference or to do any deep body language analysis, but because I was at a concert and I couldn't actually play the video itself with audio. And as I was watching it, I did understand the body language of Pierre Poilievre. There's no smiling, beaming, phony politician anymore. Now it's just like he almost looks like Nixon, like, how dare you ask me this question? You could see it in his jowls. He doesn't want to be asked the question. And then he goes on to pivot to inflation. Inflation, like, you know, exactly what he did with the Ottawa trucker protest. When it was cool to support it, he went out and got his photo up. When it was cool to support it, he went out and had his breakfast, brought his donuts, got his photo up, and then went along with his day. And when it was no longer cool to support that, remember what he referred to it as? He referred to it as a protest against inflation. It seems that Pierre Poilievre pivots to inflation when he wants to sort of say something about something without saying anything about anything. And because I had multiple takes and I couldn't decide which one to go with first, I went with that tweet first and then a follow-up tweet about Pierre Poilievre being basically a globalist. Viva Fry at the Viva Fry. Hey, at WEF, you should probably just go ahead and add at Pierre Poilievre back to your website. And then someone on Twitter replies to me, if you don't care about the birds, that makes you WEF. To which I reply, considering the cull order is to honor the globalist, quote, World Organization of Animal Health, end quote, agreement, yes. And here you see the Canadian Food Inspection Agency plans to euthanize more than 300 ostriches after members of the flock tested positive for the disease in December at Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, BC. The agency has faced increasing pushback from the farm and its supporters. Culling of infected birds is standard practice and in line with the World Organization for Animal Health. The so-called Conservative Party of Canada, the so-called opposition, they're no longer ignoring this. You can't chalk it up to them ignoring it. You know that they know about it now, and you know that they are talking about anything else except for this. Pierre Poilievre deflecting from a very direct question as to how he feels about the cull order, and Melissa Lantsman seemingly trolling the internet. October is the month of the birds, just not the ostriches, you know, blue jays. Distract yourselves with sports, stupid people. It's gotten so bad that even the Green Party MP Elizabeth May said something about the ostriches before Pierre Poilievre, and said something that was apparently even more in opposition to the cull than anything Pierre Poilievre said. But wait until you hear what Elizabeth May said, because she can't hide the fact that she's a disgusting specimen of a human filled with hate and spite. And if you have any doubts and think I'm being hyperbolic, wait until the end of her statement. But for those of you who don't know who Elizabeth May is, apparently she is the known town drunk in government. Elizabeth Evans May, OC MP, born June 9, 1954, is a Canadian politician, environmentalist, lawyer, activist, and author. She has served as the Member of Parliament MP for Saanich Gulf Islands, that's in British Columbia, since 2011. May is the leader of the Green Party of Canada, having first held the position from 2006 to 2019. She returned to the leadership in 2022, initially as co-leader with Jonathan Pedno, and is now serving as the party's sole and outgoing leader following his resignation. Now, she's from British Columbia, and apparently her constituents had brought this to her attention, the slaughter of the ostriches. They opposed the slaughter of the ostriches. They brought this to her attention sometime back in January 2025, and initially she took interest in this story. She had questions for the CFIA, but it seems that her interest in the story faded, and when you understand the reason why, for which her interest faded in this story, it has to do with spite to MAGA, because apparently some MAGA billionaires in the United States have taken interest in this story, so she somehow now has less interest in saving the ostriches, or as she says, she's less sympathetic to the ostriches because MAGA has taken an interest in saving them. And if you think I'm exaggerating and you think I'm lying, wait until you hear what the old drunkie Elizabeth May had to say about the ostrich slaughter.
Curious what your take is on the ostrich situation at Universal Ostrich Farms. What's your party's position on that?
Well, I wrote the Minister of Health in so long ago now, a very different Minister of Health. It was January 2025 that I wrote to say, look, can't we get the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to redo the tests? That will remove a lot of the either anxiety, divisions. One wants to know why not redo the tests. It's not that difficult to redo the tests. But CFIA is refusing. So I think CFIA could help themselves, potentially, by doing independent testing. Do these birds have traces of avian flu? And it's become such a divisive issue. I must say most of my constituents who write me want that ostrich cull not to happen. And they want to, and I want to know, I'm not saying whether it should or shouldn't happen, but why not get the evidence? Why not, and this is our position as a party, why not redo the testing and verify the health of that flock of ostriches before engaging in what many see as animal cruelty? And I can't imagine, this is absolutely astonishing to me, that an animal welfare issue in Canada has garnered the attention of MAGA-type billionaires in the United States, which makes me sympathize with the ostriches less. But that doesn't matter. What matters is we get our facts first. And we don't have all the facts because CFIA has refused to do the testing.
It's truly pathological. Her own constituents from January 2025 have been raising this issue, bringing it to her attention because they oppose the slaughter. She understands that it's totally unscientific that the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, has not retested the birds in damn near a year and yet wants to proceed to slaughter them, that they're not providing clarity, transparency, and answers. She understands this. She understands its massive government overreach to the detriment of private ownership of property, slaughtering of innocent animals. She's an activist after all, you know, an environmentalist, and she was initially interested in the story, but then MAGA got their little claws in it and blew this story up. So now she's a little less sympathetic to the slaughter of the ostriches. Spiteful, vindictive, mean, basically just evil. And if you apply that philosophy to humans, for example, oh yeah, sure, the kid went missing, and I was very interested in the story until I found out his parents supported the Conservative Party of Canada or the People's Party of Canada, so I was a little less sympathetic to the missing child. That is exactly what that awful person Elizabeth May is saying right now. Yeah, my constituents wanted me to look into this story. They wanted me to prevent the slaughter of innocent, healthy animals, but then MAGA came in and I'm a little less sympathetic to the ostriches, so off with their heads. Heck, but at least she said something. She said something more than Pierre Poilievre, and what she said up until the end actually made a little bit of sense. Why won't the CFIA test the birds? It's not like they lack any money. They've got an entire armed force of RCMP out there for the last 2 weeks. Test the birds, see if they're sick. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to provide clarity. They don't want to provide transparency. They don't want anybody second guessing their initial order to kill the birds, because in Soviet Canada, the government never makes a mistake. The government never arrests an innocent person. If they arrest you, you are guilty by definition, and they will never exonerate you. When the government comes in with a kill order, they are going to kill your animals even if there's no good reason to do it. And by golly, Elizabeth May would have taken much more of an interest in this story if it weren't for those pesky MAGA Republicans in America taking an interest in the story and trying to save innocent birds. By the way, if you're still watching and you haven't hit subscribe, turned on notifications, drop a comment in the comment section. I don't know what I got to do to get you to do it, but do it. It helps the channel grow. But most importantly, now you know the update. Put this story on blast. Highlight to the Trump administration that Canada's insistence of slaughtering these birds is an insult to the administration. It puts everyone at risk to the extent that these birds actually have scientific value for the purposes of studying the H5N1 avian flu and or determining whether or not they have any antibodies that might be useful to the world. And if you are someone who says, yeah, I would have taken an interest in this story, but I don't like the other people who are involved in it, so I'm going to let an injustice be carried out. Congratulations, Elizabeth May. You are a political scumbag. We all knew that already, but at least you said something minorly accurate. And maybe now you should act on it in the name of the constituents who elected you to represent their interests and not be a spiteful, vindictive person. So that's it. Now you know your vlog. You know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. But most importantly, exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!